see if it will let me pull it up. See where we go here. Maybe it's going to let me share. Maybe it's not. So, you know, all of ours kind of look different. This is my own personal. You have your picture, your name, your news feed. Here's your hours, your calendar. This is any DROs that are going on you can look at, and any volunteer needs. So the first thing you're going to want to know is to look at this top. There you have your home, you have your profile. If you click profile, it goes into your profile page. You have my chapter, that will give you any of your chapter information. You have your headquarters, this gives you all the headquarters. You have your resource library. This is very important stuff that you can look up different documents that are available. Everybody's looks a little different because it depends on where you're located, what groups you're in, who you're hooked up to. You have my groups, which it will get over there eventually. Nope, it went to my profile. You have my groups. These will be all the groups that you're in. You have your, at the top, all your local groups, that your regional groups, and then at the bottom would be all your global groups. You have my shifts, would be anything you can sign up. The same thing at the top is anything that's regional, anything you can, like events you can register, and then at the bottom is all your global. Opportunities. These are any opportunities of where you could sign up for from local. There's both local and headquarters.
And Tracy, that would be volunteer positions, right? Is that
correct.
What the opportunities
volunteer
are?
opportunities,
Okay.
correct.
Yeah.
So, and you can signify if you want a certain type, a certain location, whatever your interests are. They are both local, is at the top. Anything that's local to your region. At the bottom is any for NHQ, any type of NHQ opportunity. So our headquarters opportunities. And then reports, certain positions you have availability to print reports around your position. But let me go back to home.
Tracy, can I interrupt for 1 second?
Sure.
I forgot to tell people that we are recording this.
Awesome. And so at home, the main things that you want to know about is how do I enter my hours, which is this button right here. So if anything that you do for the Red Cross, you want to make sure that you're entering those hours because they will build on your transcript and they help your region. So if I wanted to enter hours for this training today, I would hit add hours. You're going to see a pop-up box comes up. It's thinking about it. And in here, it's basically going to ask you the date, how long you work, you volunteered. You have to have a amount in this hours tab. Even if it's 30 minutes, you want to make sure you put a 0 and then put your minutes. What the activity is, everybody calls their activity something different. So, and then, hold on, it went out. And then what kind, you always want to say worked unless you're standby for example, if you're available in DAT, and you're on a standby, or if you're available on standby for something, then there is an opportunity to put on call or general availability. But most of the time, you're going to say worked. If you go to a meeting or a training, you worked. So you'd want to click that, and then the position. And most people have, whatever your specific positions are, you will have drop downs in here.
Okay, those pop-up menus aren't showing up for us, but I'm assuming that's going to list any positions attached to their profile, right?
Correct. Whatever they have attached. So if nothing's attached currently, there would be nothing in there.
So if they wanted to count the hours for attending this, they would put that under. They should have a DST position.
Yeah, they should have a DST, right? Or some general. Correct.
Okay.
And then you hit submit. And then if you have another one, you can hit submit and add another. If you say you wanted to do some, depending on your group, you'll want to clarify Some groups want them to do their hours individually. If I work today, they want me to do an hour, tomorrow an hour. Some don't mind if you do the whole week. I did 20 hours of volunteering this week because it's all the same thing. I did this training all week and it was 20 hours. So you want to make sure you get with whoever your department or whoever you're working under and ask them, how do you want me to submit my hours? Do you want me to do it globally or do you want me to do it individual? Because it's very different for some people.
Tracey, do you want to answer some questions as we go along here?
Sure.
Someone's asking about if you're scheduled as a duty officer. Is that considered worked or on call? Do you know?
A duty officer is considered on call. It's just like a DAT supervisor. They're all considered on call. Now, the good and bad of that, for example, is that if you're a duty officer and you're on call and then you get a call, you can schedule those as 2 different hours. So I'm a duty officer and I'm on call for 12 hours, right? That's my on-call time. And in the middle of that 12 hours, I get a call and that call's 3 hours. I want to schedule those as 2 different schedules. I want to schedule my 12 hours I was on call and my 3 hours I worked.
Okay, thanks. And someone's asking, when would you use general availability?
General availability, I don't see it used very often. Some people use it when they're like on standby for a DRO. If somebody called you and said, hey, I want to put you on standby for a DRO because we have, like, for example, if right now we have Hurricane Douglas coming to Hawaii, there's a lot of people on standby. So that would be kind of the general available. They're available if the time comes up. It's kind of the same thing on call. They're very similar.
Okay, and Saroj has a question here that I'm not sure I understand.
Does he want to unmute and ask it? He or she?
Hi. Yeah, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I don't know what region everybody's in, but out here in Arizona, New Mexico, there's a session every Tuesday morning, and they say from time to time, don't log this because we're logging it in your hours. But there may be others that I don't even know about. I don't know how to get feedback to whoever puts this thing together, but it seems like we ought to be able to see those hours and then have them asterisked or something. No, they never show up in mine.
So if they don't show up in your, so if you went into your hours and you hit this view previous hours right here, it's going to take you to a graph of your previous hours. If you don't see that they're putting those hours in there, then they're not putting them in there. They would come in here. You can look at them. You can either look at them like this view. I prefer mine on a calendar view because I'm just kind of weird that way.
Yeah, me too.
But you can go in, and so for example, I'm on a regional change, so you see, but all your hours come on here on this calendar like this.
Regardless of who puts them in.
Regardless of who puts them in. Even if you use, like, for example, you see I have these green ones. That's through a shift tool. So even if you use the shift tool sends those hours to your calendar. So if you don't see them on here, they didn't get entered.
Oh, I appreciate knowing that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, we should probably move on, or we're not going to get to your other topics. So
no worries. So let me go back to the home. 2 of the things that you're really going to want to know are right here. We have Edge. That is where you can take any classes. And the Exchange is where you're going to find any documentation that you want to look at. So I'll click Edge first. It's going to give you a separate screen. Takes a minute to come in. Just going to think about it today. You'll have your sign-on screen. And then this is where you can go out and look for if they tell you, you need to take so-and-so classes, or if you're like some of us, we just take classes for everything just because we want to be knowledgeable. This is where you're going to find them all. I don't know why it's so slow. Once you get in here, there's a couple options. If it opens, you can search. If you had a class name that they gave you, you can put it right here in this search up at the top and just hit the search and it will go. You can also search by calendar. Say I wanted a certain month. I said, oh, I want to see what classes are available in July. I can hit calendar and search all the classes in July. I can also look at my transcript of any classes I've taken. I can look at any classes that I've waitlisted. I can also look at any of the IFRC courses that are available because we are able to take those as well. And I can also look at disaster ready courses, which are other optional courses that are not that are affiliated with the Red Cross. So these are the way that you could take any classes. So if I had a specific class that I was looking for the name of, I can type it here or I can do it here. I can also do browse training. And I can go by subject. If I know that my specialty is disaster and that's all I want to take is the disaster classes and I want to see what classes they have, I can go right here under subject and look at ones that might be of interest to me. Maybe I want deploy materials. Maybe I want information and management. Maybe I'm looking at how I can mobilize or I can deploy. There's all kinds of, maybe I want biomed classes. All the classes are listed in here. If I want service to the armed forces, if I want to work in volunteer, if I want international. So that's how you would find all of your classes. The other important area is our exchange. The exchange is where you're going to find guidelines, documents, anything you want to know about the Red Cross. Here is your spot. Right now, the big focal is our COVID-19 topic hub. Anything regarding COVID-19, you're going to find under here. Anything you're going to see like these little stories, like for example, you're going to talk about, they talked about a home fire campaign. Anything, messages for GEL usually appear here. So anything that's in the news or relevant is going to appear here, and also is the topic hub. This is another area that you can search. Say I wanted to know what the DAT guidelines were. All I have to do is type in the word DAT. It's going to give me a drop-down box. I can pick one of these if I know what I'm looking for. So say I wanted the DAT toolkit because that's anything with that. If I'm a duty officer, that's obviously where I'm going to be because that's DAT dispatch. But it goes into you being able to find any kind of guidelines or research. If you're looking at COVID stuff, everything COVID's here, which is our current environment. And then it's downloaded by subject. So here you would look whatever business unit, and it's going to have all the guidelines for that business unit.
And Tracy, I just put another link in the chat there. That's the link to our new DST Toolkit that
Awesome.
launched in June.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunately when they did that reorganization of everything back in June, it's not showing up under the COVID toolkit.
Oh.
So that's why I put the link in there directly. It's kind of hard to find your way to it, but if you have the link, there you go.
Yeah,
you can go right to it.
That is one of the things I notice with the exchange. Sometimes you have to play with the wording because, for example, you put in DST, it might not pick it up. But if I put in disaster service technology, it will. So you kind of have to play around with the wording sometimes to find what you're looking for.
Yeah. Or you might, I know we have a regular DST toolkit.
Right.
So you might, for this one, you might need to put in DST remote support. I don't know. I haven't tried that many different searches, but for now you have the link to get there. If you just
put the first letter, I always try to put like DST and then just see what it gives me. You know, just because then it gives you a drop down. If none of these are what I want, then I go, okay, well, those aren't what I want. And you can keep playing with it and look at however.
Right.
So those are the main things that we use out of Volunteer Connects. You have your resource library. This has some good reading in it. Like, for example, this has the how-tos. If you don't know how to do something, how do I log my hours? How do I get the mobile app? How do I explore my teams, my groups and teams? How do I discover? So if you want the how-tos do something, those guides, those are in here. How to use Volunteer Connect, how to go into group shares. So these are really good for how-tos, how to do something. And that's about it. I mean, that's basically Volunteer Connect, and it's you know, it's very, you know, if you have any questions, there's obviously, if you're having problems, say I get in here and I can't get something to work or something's missing, especially right now with the reorg, we're noticing that things aren't carrying over. Right here's your IT service desk ticket. You can click it and go in there, and there's an option in there. What do you want to do? Do you want to submit a ticket? Do you have a question? Do you want to talk to someone? It gives you, it goes through the whole process of how you do that with a Red Cross email or without a Red Cross email.
Good. Yeah, they might need that, especially like you said, if something didn't get converted correctly during the regional reorg. Right.
And I noticed that for myself, I've lost a bunch of stuff. So I noticed, and I did reach out, and a lot of it's stuff they know already, but, you know, reach out to them and say, hey, this, you know, and for me, I find it best when you send them a screenshot of what you're looking at, because for example, I have a queue, my queue is missing. So I sent them a screenshot and said, hey, it's missing. And so they understood right away, and they said, yeah, we know that's a problem. So if you have the ability to send them a screenshot, definitely send them a screenshot saying this should be there, or this is where it should be, and explain what it is. Any other questions, thoughts?
Saroj is asking about what to download to a flash drive when we're deployed. I don't think what Tracey just showed us would be anything that you would need to download. Normally,
is she looking for like DST information?
I was talking about the link that you posted, Susan, for those of us who are in DST.
Oh,
is that what we're supposed to download?
No. Oh, that's just a resource page where you can, there's links there for learning more about Teams. There are links with audio visual tips for being in a video meeting like this. Security tips and things like that.
Okay, so we still need to go into Volunteer Connection, go into files, and download the latest.
Download your DTPs.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
All right. So we have about 10 minutes to have you go in and try some of these things and see if you have questions. If you want to go and open up your Volunteer Connection, make sure you have all the groups that you think you should be part of. See if anything has changed since the regional.
And you might see for example, with mine, I see some of my, I want to say some of my positions they have an end date for them, but they haven't restarted them. And I know that some of them they have to hand do because they're named different in different regions. So they're hand going in and doing that. And you'll see, because the last position will say Reorganization 2020. Okay. So if you see that still in your file, that means they haven't finished doing whatever they're doing in there.
But does that mean somebody already has that flagged on a list to be fixed? That's, so they don't need to necessarily open a ticket for that? Yeah,
they don't have to submit a ticket. It gives them a report. I only know that because, for example, my region, we have a DAT supervisor, but we're going to a region that has a DAT lead. So it's the same position, two different names.
Right.
So they're having to do those by hand. So you'll see that those kind of things are still happening. I would say if by the end of next week, you still see that there's something wrong, then I would reach out to your local people and say, hey, do you know if they're done? And then if they say, yeah, then say, okay, well, then I'm going to do a ticket.
Okay. Tina, I'll get to you in a minute. I see you have your hands up. Brian is asking a question, Tracey, that I've seen somebody ask before, and I didn't find the answer to this yet. They're saying when they go to submit their hours, they don't have a position showing up for DST, even though they are part of the global group share, so they have a DST gap.
So that happens when whoever did your global, or whoever assigned you the DST gap didn't do it correctly. And I only know that because that happened to me.
Okay.
So they either don't have you gapped, they either don't have you in the position with your right region. That's when it happens most of the time, is the person that added the position has it connected to a different region for some reason, or they didn't do it correctly. So you have to reach out to your local workforce engagement and have them look at it and make sure that it's added correctly.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeff is saying some gaps for drop down were lost during the regional realignments.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess in that case, Jeff, you probably also would need to ask someone in your region to
have them look at
fix
it.
that.
We've had that too. We've had a few here.
All right, Tina, you had a question. Do you want to unmute and?
Yeah, my question's right along the same thing about that, you know, I can't list my hours because I don't have a position for DST national gap. I mean, I have a gap, but so it's at the local level that has to be corrected. Is that
correct? So you have a DST gap. It's a headquarters gap or it's a local gap?
I don't know if it's local or headquarters. I mean,
you would know the difference. So if you don't know the difference, then it must be local, because you would know if it was a headquarters, if headquarters are placed through headquarters. So that would mean you would reach out to your local person and have them look at how they inputted your gap for DST. Let me see if I don't think I have a drop down gap. I have DST as a gap, but I don't think I have a gap that I report hours for. No. So for like me, I have DST as a gap, but I don't have a drop down in here because I don't do anything, like it's not my primary gap. These are positions. So a gap is a gap and a position is a position. So these are positions that, so if you look at and I'll show you what the difference looks like. If you look at your profile, and this may be where you're all looking at the same. If you look at your profile and it says you have a position of a DST position. So for example, you were a DST, I don't know, radio ham guy. I don't even know what positions are actually positions for DST, but you have the difference between, let me see when mine's going to pull up.
I think the position would be like service associate or supervisor.
That is a gap. That is your gap. Your gap is your SA, your SV, your manager, that's your gap. A position means that you hold, I want to say, a job title. I don't know how else they word them. So for example, you'll see that you have, where did my positions go? They must be down further. It's still loading, so. Your gaps, you won't have a drop down box. You should have a drop down box that says disaster workforce. And that's what all gaps get logged under there, unless DST gives a position. I don't know because I don't have one, but I don't know. So a position is, you have disaster workforce. You have all these different named positions, right? In order for, if DST wants you to log hours under DST, then they would have to give you a position. Okay.
Well, I know we definitely do want to track hours under that. So maybe this is part of what the problem is.
As a DST team, think of what position you want to create for them to be able to log hours under. Okay. Because they have a gap currently of DST, and you'll see that a lot of us have that gap. A gap doesn't allow you to log hours. All of those hours go under workforce, unless you have a specific position that's different that includes one of those gaps. So if you wanted, if DST wants to be able to log hours under DST, then that's something that, Susan, you can work with Sarah and I on, of maybe creating a position to put in the position field for all your people that are DST. And you can make it a very generic.
Yeah, it probably wouldn't be me, but I know that's something that our new director really wants to do.
She can make it very
and Eric
generic.
Is working with her on that. So
yeah, she can make it very generic position, saying, you know, whatever she wants it to be called. But then that way they would be able to look to save DST hours. Because if they don't have a position, everything else goes under disaster workforce.
Okay. I see a couple other comments here about this. Michaela is saying that GAP describes your operational state role and positions track non-DRO roles.
Correct.
Does that sound right to you,
Correct.
Tracy? Okay.
Correct.
Okay. DST team member. I'm not sure the point you're trying to make there.
I think that maybe that's the position.
Oh, she says that. Oh, she says she has 4 lines of gaps, but 2 are repeated. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that happens a lot. I don't know why it does that. I see that a lot where it repeats like the same gap over and over.
And the thing, if I can just say, and the thing is that my DST, so I've been qualified in all, I don't know, 5 or 6 subcategories, but it only shows CO. So I guess I would only ever be recruited for a DR for communications, right?
Right. And so if you have the other ones and you've completed all the training, you'd have to reach out to your local and have them add those gaps.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, because that's what they refer to those when they're doing the recruitment for the DRs.
And remember,
right?
on a DRO, they can only see originally your first 3 gaps. So you could have 100 gaps, but they only see the first 3 when they're first recruiting. But if they're looking for DST, they can run a report of anybody that's on that DRO once you're there, of anybody that's on the DRO assigned, what their gaps are. Okay. So you could have been recruited for mass care. Say you have a sheltering gap and you recruited, you deployed for a sheltering gap, right? They can say, oh, well, let's see anybody here. Somebody needs a day off or somebody goes home sick and they need to find somebody DST like that. They can run a report of anybody that's currently on that DRO and see, do they have a DST gap?
Oh, interesting.
Or do they have, so even if you went on DST CO and they said, oh, well, we need somebody that's DST something else, they can run that report and see who's on that DRO and has that gap.
Okay, let's take one more question and then we should probably wrap up.
Okay.
William Keith, you had your hand up? Well, it looks like there were 2 people actually. William, did you have a question?
Yeah, it's similar to what you guys have been talking about. So I have a gap of DSC comms, but it doesn't show up in my drop down when I log hours. And
yeah, you won't be able to because that's a gap. That's not a position. And that's what we're talking is the director of DST, if they're wanting you to be able to log your hours as DST, they're going to have to make that into a position. They're going to have to give a DST team member. And a lot of people do that. They make it's DST team member and it's a position. And then it gives you the opportunity to log them under DST.
Okay.
And then I've taken the DST classes for customer service, comms, networking. So do I have to have all of those under my gap?
You're going to want them if you want to deploy in them. Yes, you're going to go. If you want to deploy in them and you want them as your gaps, you would need to see your local person and ask them to add those gaps.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's not just for reporting your hours. It's also, I believe that's what they run in Volunteer Connection to do the recruitment. Is that right,
and
Tracy?
They do it,
and then they're looking for those first 3 gaps.
Right. So if you're going to be a DRO, your local deployment person, or even if
I said recruitment, I should say deployment, right?
Yeah, your local deployment person will run a report to say who has these gaps in my area that I could deploy, who's deployable and has these gaps. So you're going to want to definitely make sure if you want to deploy in those gaps, make sure your local people add those gaps on there.
Okay. The reason why I was confused is because in the book, when it talks about DST gaps, it only says DST / and then it has like a catch-all for the activity, and then it has the position of SA. It doesn't have individual pieces in the, I forget what book it is. But anyways, I'll
go into Edge and type into Edge. I'll give you a real quick thing on Edge because I do this all the time. If you go into Edge and you type in DSC Gap, type the word DSC Gap. It gives you all the different gap. They're called packages, I call them. I don't know what they're really called. But if you click, say I see DSCT customer service, if I click that and I've met all the classes that gap requires, it automatically adds that into my transcript. And then you can forward that to, and it's going to send you an email. You can forward that to your local and say, hey, I finished all these classes. Can you please add this to my transcript?
And they would add it to your profile and volunteer connection too.
Correct.
Then is what
Your
you're
profile,
saying. Okay.
yeah, correct.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but you just go into Edge, type DST or DCS, Disaster Care Services, and then the word gap. And then it gives you all of those little packages of classes that it basically tells you what classes you need to meet. If it doesn't automatically add to your transcript, it means because you're missing a class. And you can go in there and look, what class am I missing? It will tell you right in there. It will say unassigned, not taken. There's different ways they word it. But it gives you a breakdown of all the classes that you would need to take to get that gap.
Okay. Well, I
Thank
think
you.
we're going to have to schedule a future session about Edge. 'Cause I hadn't thought of that before, but there are a lot of questions people have about
Yeah, no worries.
getting their transcript there. And I have other people I can call in about Edge too, but I think, Tracy, we may need to schedule another future session with you too, because people
No
have
worries.
a lot of questions about this.
No worries.
Or if there's really a lot of interest, do you teach that class on a regular basis? Is there someplace they can sign up for that in Edge?
We don't really teach it, but if you
Okay.
need to have me come back on, that's fine. If you want to do another class, that's fine. I don't have any problem.
Okay. Let me talk to my boss about it and see, because part of this depends on her defining that position
Right.
too, it sounds
Yeah,
like.
and that's
So,
definitely, she's going to want to make sure if she wants them to have hours that go under DST, we're
yeah.
going to definitely want to do a position, and that she can send to Sarah and I, and we can get that position added.
Okay. Yeah, probably it would make sense for us to do that first and then maybe schedule another session for
Okay.
you to come in and talk about how that will be different for them to report their hours. Well, I know I learned a lot. I hope everybody else did as well. Thank you so much, Tracy.
You're very
And
welcome.
thanks to all of you for attending. And I'll just point out we are doing an open office hours next Thursday. And Tina Chi has offered to be the Q&A person for that. So Tina, what time did we say? I'm not remembering at the moment. Are you still here? Can you let us know?
I think it's 1:30, 1 o'clock or 1:30 Pacific.
1 o'clock Pacific time, right, which would be 4 o'clock Eastern time. And I will send out a reminder about that next Wednesday. But in the meantime, you can mark it on your calendar. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. And we're going to go ahead and sign off.
All right. Have a great day. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Tracy.
You're welcome.
Susan, don't forget to turn off the recording.
I won't, but the first thing I have to do is save the participants. That's the thing I forgot to do last time. I'm doing it right now.
All right. Bye.
Thanks, Tina. Bye-bye.
Levels and storm surge. They assessed that. They looked at